I want to talk to you today about the warrior spirit. And when I think about people who embody the warrior spirit, one name that just has to be on that list is King Leonidas. It was the late summer of 480 BC, and the Persian Empire is acting on an old grudge that they have with Greece, and so they amass this ridiculously huge navy and over 300,000 infantry to basically roll in over Greece and absorb it into the Persian Empire. Now, this doesn't sit well with many of the Greek city-states, and particularly the Spartans don't like the idea of their land basically being taken over and hauled off to some concentration camp somewhere. So what's at stake here in this moment is, for the Persian Empire, their pride, the glory of the empire, Xerxes in particular. This is an empire in every sense of the word. It is a dictatorship. Whereas for Greece, not only are they fighting for their homeland, they're fighting for their freedom, they're fighting for the man standing next to them, they're fighting for their culture, their language, life as they know it. But if you're an American, as I am, and you're watching this, or you live in Western Europe or some democratized place in the world, then you too have a stake in this battle and how it plays out, because the seeds of democracy come from the politics of Greece, which were later transferred to the Roman Empire and to the rest of Western civilization. So freedom itself is at stake, as you and I understand it, in this conflict. So King Leonidas takes 300 of his Spartans. Why only 300, you might ask? Because basically of a calendar conflict, there was a religious holiday at play. Many feared that it would offend the gods, but knowing what is at stake, King Leonidas risks angering the gods and takes himself and 300 of his fiercest warriors down to a choke point in Thermopylae. And for 3 days, these Spartans, these 300 warriors, hold off the entire Persian military. So terms were offered, as you might imagine, to King Leonidas, and he rejects them. And when the ambassador of Xerxes more forcefully asks him to lay down his arms, King Leonidas responds with this Greek phrase, molon labe, which basically translated means, why don't you come and get him? I love that warrior spirit. And at the end of the second day of battle, the Spartans had only lost a few men, while the Persian military body count was approaching 20,000. So basically the Spartans here are just spanking the living daylights out of the Persian military and shaming them in battle after battle. Now, Leonidas and his brave Spartans were eventually overcome by a traitor who tipped off the Persian Empire that there was a secret pass that their warriors could get around and then surround the Spartans. But it was their unwavering stance, even in the face of overwhelming odds, that bought the rest of Greece the precious time that they needed to gather resources to throw off the Persian Empire and to survive. One of the Bible's greatest warriors is King David, and he wrote, "Praise be to the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. He is my loving God and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield, in whom I take refuge." Maybe you've been looking around at your life and wondering why it seems like you've been facing battle after battle and conflict after conflict. Maybe you feel like you're just surrounded by overwhelming odds and circumstances. I want you to remember that God is preparing warriors. God knows that you and I have to gain endurance and toughness by facing problems. so that when we face off against the powers of darkness and temptation, that we're able to stand and fight and be victorious. God is using everything, even the things that are going wrong, to train us for the trials that are coming before the return of Jesus Christ. So if you're being tempted to compromise in these situations, I want you to remember that phrase from King Leonidas, Molon Labe, come and get it. Never fear your enemy. Be bold, be confident, be courageous, and always stand your ground.